The Board of Directors here at Ettalong Diggers have called this meeting following the suspension of passenger ferry services to the Ettalong and Wagstaff as from Wednesday week ago, the 2nd of May 2018. My name is Bill Jackson and I'm the CEO here at the club. We, Ettalong Diggers, as a concerned resident of the Central Coast, a major tourist promoter, and fearful that our elected representatives are not taking into consideration what we, the voters, want to see happen on our coast, are here tonight. Along with over 350 people, there were 355 seats put out, and it looks like there's closer to 380 people in the room. Thank you very much. I would welcome tonight Adam Crouch, MP, Member for Terrigal, Liesl Tesh, MP, Member for Gosford, Councillor Rebecca Gale Collins, Councillor Richard Mertens, and Mr Tim Soden, representing Lucy Wicks, MP, Member for Robinson. Concerned residents, the apologies were received from the Honourable Paul Toole, MP, Minister for Lands, Forestry and Racing, the Honourable Scott McDonald, MLC, Parliamentary Secretary for Planning, Central Coast and the Hunter, Anne Charlton, endorsed Labor candidate for Robertson in the next federal election, as well as Councillors Chris Holstein, Greg Best and Troy Marquette. Matthew Wales, President of the Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, and Russell Mills, Tourism Central Coast, all made apologies. Regretfully, ladies and gentlemen, no replies were received from Mayor Jane Smith and several other councillors who were all personally invited to attend this meeting this evening. You may ask, how does the suspension of passenger ferry services affect this club? Quite simply, we are in partly relying on the ability of groups being able to come across from northern beaches of Sydney and relax and enjoy on the peninsula. 4 days after the above suspension, this club had 3 rather large groups from 40 to 60 people cancel because there's no passenger services. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the tip of an iceberg from our perspective. The more we looked into this problem, the more alarming it became, as Ettalong Channel is, as most of you are aware, only the tip of the multitude of problems that are about to overtake the pristine Brisbane waters. When I first moved to the Central Coast some 20 years ago, I had occasion to view a canoeist rowed to the centre of Tuggerah Lake from my office on the first floor of Tupley RSL Club. That man worked very hard to get all the way to the centre, and I don't know to this day who was more surprised, him or I, when he jumped out and the water came to his knees. My fear is that this is now happening to Brisbane water. However, I'm not an engineer, nor any other type of specialist regarding these problems. And to be frank, I don't feel that it is necessary for me or any one of us to know that what the problem is. We need to have some assurances from our elected representatives that it will be fixed, and fixed soon. The problem started as being the inability of people to come to the peninsula and the Central Coast, and thus the loss of large amounts of tourism dollars to businesses on the Central Coast. A quick calculation gives us 200,000 people per year, and if they spend on a coffee and a piece of cake, $10 each, that's a loss of $2 million in 12 months just from that. The businesses around Ettalong, Woy Woy, Umina and other areas of the peninsula cannot afford to let dollars go. Then, as at this morning's count, this club had 26,894 members, of which 80% reside in or have their home address as the 2256-2257 postcode. That's 21,515 people. These people, like yourselves, have moved to this area for the lifestyle and particularly being able to enjoy Brisbane water with their own leisure craft, but this is now becoming more of a dilemma as each year passes, as the ability to enter and leave via Ettalong Channel disappears. Finally, it impacts on our ability to employ staff from Wagstaff area and other areas around the lake. As their ability to travel back and forth to work is further eroded, what takes a few minutes on a ferry takes considerably longer on the Central Coast road system, particularly peak hours. Some of our fellow businesses have apologised for tonight, as they have had to make a decision to try and remain open for Thursday night late shopping or attend this meeting, and I have been assured by many of these people that they are here in spirit, and I thank them for that. A fellow CEO is one Richard Croker from the Gosford Sailing Club. Richard and his club have major concerns about their future, given that they are not able to conduct major sailing regattas due to this problem. Many sailors in the room will appreciate that problem, and I think Liesl's one of those. It must be fixed. Thank you all for attendance tonight, and whilst this club remains completely impartial, that means I don't bash anybody yet, I must, in fairness to the invited parties, give them an opportunity to speak. However, before I do so, it is important that we, as a meeting of voters, give these elected representatives a clear and precise message to take with them from tonight's meeting. We must all be wise enough by now to know that whatever is done with Ettalong Channel today is not going to last forever, and therefore we must also request that our local and state governments put in place a plan that schedules the necessary works into the future and ensures that this is never going to happen again. Ladies and gentlemen at the back of the room, thank you very much for your attendance. I'm sorry we haven't got enough chairs for you. That puts the number at over 400 people. Thank you. I sincerely apologise to you all for any discomfort you may have in this tightly packed room. But we'll try and make the meeting not go too long. Before I introduce the speakers, I will impress upon them all that we have a large audience who haven't come to listen to any electioneering or grandstanding. That we wish to hear the abridged version of their side of the story. Speakers are asked to keep their speeches to no more than 3 minutes, unless if possible. At the conclusion of the speakers, I will return to obtain your questions, and we will endeavour to have those answered for you. This will be followed by obtaining the views of this meeting and hopefully a resolution to move forward with. First speaker, Mr. John Wood. John is Chairman of the Board of Directors of Ettalong Diggers. I'll pass over to John now. Thank you, John.
Good evening all. On behalf of the Board of Directors and the CEO of Ettalong Diggers, Mr. Bill Jackson, I welcome you to tonight's forum. This meeting has been called on behalf of the club and the community's concerns over the shoaling of our channel system entering the Brisbane water. Personally, I congratulate Kim Cole of Ettalong Diggers Tourism Officer, Tanya Casey and Bill Jackson, our CEO, for their efforts in convening this meeting. When white settlement of the Brisbane waters began 200 years ago, transport would have been by boat only. Navigating through deep, silt-free channels would have given them easy access to their destination. Dolphins, bird, marine life would have been abundant. With white settlement, land clearing, logging, animal farming would have been the start of the pollution of the pristine waters. The introduction of the rail network, road construction industry would have started a permanent cycle of siltation of the creeks, streams and the main body of the water system. A little bit of history on the siltation is 1970, Gosford Council owned and operated a dredge to address the siltation problems of the Brisbane water. Environmental protests ruled and the dredging was suspended. 1980, the Public Works of New South Wales funded the re-nourishment of Ettalong Beach. The dredge operated for 12 hours a day, for 6 days a week, for 6 months. The front of the club looked like the Sahara Desert at that time. Local government, federal government and council are all guilty of this uncontrolled pollution of our waterways. Stop the political game. State and federal seats of this Central Coast are vital to form governments. They are swinging seats. You have the power. Vote for officials who will make a policy change to address these issues. The state of the channel is a navigation nightmare and all operators are at risk. Legacy for our grandchildren will be a sterile, polluted cesspool. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next speaker is Mr. Adam Crouch, MP, member for Terrigal. Thank you, Adam.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I also want to acknowledge the other speakers here this evening. I've got 3 minutes, so I'll keep it as brief as I can. The 8th of June is the cut-off date for the Rescue Our Waterways funding program that the state government runs every year and has run since 2011. That is a co-funded program where the state government matches council dollar for dollar to keep our local waterways clear and navigable. It literally is that simple. That program is open right now. Unfortunately, Minister Paul Toole could not be here this evening, but he has written personally to the Mayor already recommending in the strongest terms that she and the council should put in a compliant application. There's no point applying for 100% of the funds in the 50-50 co-funded program and expect to get a positive result. What I do have to point out is that this council has already received $250,000 to dredge the entrance through that same program, and that dredging is being undertaken right now as we sit here. So this is a sort of example of how that program is there to help all of us. But the council have to put in that compliant application to receive the funding. The council itself has received 2 lots of funding. It was both Gosford and Wyong for the entrance channel twice, plus also one of the creeks, I think it was Arimba Creek. This same Gosford City Council also received funding back in 2014 through this same program to dredge Woy Woy Channel in that same piece of water that they do not want to take responsibility for. So the reality is the opportunity is here right now. The message needs to be sent to council. Make sure you put a compliant application in by the 8th of June, and you will, and you should, if it is compliant, receive the funding from the state government. We will match it 50-50. This has been going on since 2011, and this council has never applied for that funding in the entire time the program has been running. That is exactly right. That is the reality. So this is a legacy issue. The last time that channel was dredged was 2010 under a 50-50 co-fund with the former state Labor government. That program was put into place by us in 2011, and there is no reason why the council cannot apply for those funds. And they're on the table and they've been made available. I must also say it was thanks to Paul Toole that we received $300,000 of emergency dredging that happened last year to keep that channel open. Now that was on behalf of the state government. There was no funding from council. It was an emergency measure. Unfortunately, it was never going to be permanent. But the council also need to look at putting a remedial and maintenance program in place for this channel, and they can apply to the state government for assistance. We've offered it publicly, we've offered it to them in our round table, we've done everything we can to try and bring council to the table on this, and you've got a number of councillors in this room tonight who are trying to push this exact issue through council and get it done. So rather than talking about it, putting your money on the table, let's get this thing dredged, let's open the channel back up the way it should be. We've got the guys here from Fantasy Cruising. They're the ones suffering as well as our local businesses on both sides of the channel. This is not electorate specific. I've got people from Wagstaff who have to get to Patonga, so we're suffering the same issues on both sides of the channel. But why not make the opportunity to grab the money from the state government when it's on the table, and at least it gives you breathing space to work out a longer term strategy on how we can continually maintain this channel. So it's not a complicated issue at all. It's actually very clear. And that strategy has been in place for years, and the funding's been available since 2011. So it's a very frustrating issue for me as a state member to have to sit here and say that I'm afraid council won't put in an application. The last time they applied for dredging Ettalong, it was a non-compliant application, applying for 100% of the funding in a 50-50 co-funding program. So the outcome was already determined, and they knew that when they put the application in. So it is very disappointing for us as a state government who have these programs on the table every year that is being ignored when the opportunity is there to grab that money. And if we don't grab it, there are 13 other coastal councils who utilise that funding, including Port Macquarie, Taree, Great Lakes, Eurobodalla, Gosford and Wyong obviously received funding, Coffs Harbour, Sutherland Shire Council, Shoalhaven, Nambucca Shire, Ballina, Georges River and Hornsby. So that's 13 other coastal councils who are all happy to do the right thing and grab the state funding to assist them with the dredging. It's about forward planning and looking for our future, not trying to blame somebody else for responsibility of something that you need to take ownership of. So it's really quite clear. The 8th of June is the cut-off date, people. So I would encourage you to put as much pressure on council to apply for a compliant application for that funding. Is that 3 minutes, Bill?
Thank you, Adam. Next speaker is Ms. Liesl Tesh.
Thanks, Bill, and thank you, Adam. Tough act to follow. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for your commitment to this petition to put pressure on the Minister for Lowndes to actually pay for this dredging. I hear you all loud and clear. As Bill said, I'm a sailor. I've been out through the channel both times after the emergency dredging and know that it hasn't been sufficient. And I really pay my respects to the Aboriginal people who looked after the land in a different way that we do, but also to the ferry drivers and those people who are continuing to try and keep our community operating despite what's gone out there, who then take the brunt of the issues that arise. So I'm here tonight speaking from the person you guys have elected to possibly rock the boat. And I'm here to rock the boat because I look at the legislation and the waterways the land under the waterways is Crown land. Land under the surface of the water is Crown land, and Crown land responsibility belongs with our state government. Our channel is a navigable waterway that takes us to and from our workplaces and to and from our schools, and it takes our tourists into our community. Thank you. Really, really important. It also takes our boaters out there, to the sailors, to the yacht clubs, to all those people who have come and spoken to me, to the people at Patonga who are crying out because the ferry's now diverted, and that big ferry is now undermining the wharf at Patonga and putting discharge where the fishing boats are now moored. So I'm hearing lots of voices and I'm hearing lots of facets. I hear the people who have taken people off their workplace because they can't work, they don't have people in there, and so I'm hearing the impact that it's have on our community. I've been thrown out of Parliament on this issue, and I was so cross, like I was so fired up, I stormed the minister's office. They just brushed me off and said, like, no, it's tedious explanation and it's 50-50. I then went to the RMS, and I thank Angus, who rang me later from the RMS. Angus is responsible for safety of our channels through the Roads and Maritime Service. Angus is here tonight, so if I'm wrong, Angus, you can fix up anything I say, but poor old Angus and the RMS bear the brunt of any safety issues that happen on the Brisbane waters. I've asked the government for the income from the Brisbane waters, they haven't provided, but I've also asked the government what happened to that ferry driver, and that thing was still under investigation. So poor old Angus and the RMS will bear the brunt if there is an accident, and God help us, when I heard there was a helicopter doing a rescue the other night when I was on the train on the way home, my heart went out for that person in the channel, and I thought, goodness gracious, I hope it's not because of the dredging. So I completely understand, and I'm with this community the whole way, but I believe that this shouldn't be a cost-shifting exercise onto our ratepayers by the state government, who is aptly loaded. And in my belief of that, I am now not fighting my own colleagues, but I'm discussing, and I know David Harris is here in the audience somewhere. David Harris is the Shadow Minister for the Central Coast. He's right up the back there. I'm now in consultation, we say, with my own colleagues, who's Mick Veitch, who's our Shadow Minister for Crown Lands, who's Yasmin Catley, who's the member for Swansea, where the government paid $666,000 for their dredging in completion in 2016. For a long-term solution to this debacle that's going on now of pushing the cost onto our ratepayers. So I'm saying to the state government, and you guys are supporting me in saying to the state government, this is a state government. Crown lands belongs to the state. And if we have to fight this tedious part of legislation, maybe we need to look at the legislation. But at the moment, the legislation says loud and clear that Crown lands is water under the surface of the water in the median tidal zone and belongs to the state. I would like to see the state take 100% responsibility for our navigable waterways so we can continue to operate in our community.
Let's call that a... Thank you, Liesl. I knew there was some passion, but I didn't know quite that good. Just good. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker is one of the councillors, Councillor Richard Notens.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, John and Joy, the directors for the club, and thank you everyone for coming here tonight. I know how hard it is for anyone to come out to an event on the coast, and it's fantastic to see such passion, and for all of you to be out here tonight to tell your elected officials, including myself, exactly what your point of view is on this matter. Over the last few months, I have heard a lot of those voices, and probably from a lot of you, and whether that be students or commuters or business operators, whatever it might be, I've heard your voice, I've heard your concerns, and I do share them. And I know that this is something that we do need an urgent response to, and I'm aware of that, and I'm very sympathetic to that. The New South Wales government of both persuasions, whether that be Labor or Liberal, have both let us down in the past. We've been screwed around by dredging, not just our community, but local governments and communities up and down the coast. And both major parties have pushed this cost onto local governments. It's time to change how things have been done, change the rules, and we need to get the New South Wales government to come back to the table on dredging. Both independent legal advice to council and independent research from the New South Wales Parliamentary Library puts dredging squarely in the space of the state government. Whether that be navigable waterways, whether that be Crown lands, whether that be safety of boaters, or whether that be public transport. These are all state government matters. Just because they say it isn't their problem, doesn't mean that's true. Just because they refuse to fund something, doesn't mean they should. Just because if they take the responsibility, if something's the responsibility of a certain level of government, that they have to take that responsibility. If the state government stopped funding Woy Woy Public School, but kept funding others, then it's not the Central Coast Council's job to come in and fund that school. Then that's exactly what's happening here. The state government is still funding. Yes, Mr Crouch has admitted that the state government funds a 50-50 program, but they also fund $10 million over 4 years to dredge the North Coast. What's good for the North Coast is exactly what's good for us. But they're ignoring our waterways. They'll use excuses like state government infrastructure. They'll use stuff such as navigable waterways. Doesn't matter. These do not appear in any sort of legislation. There is no legislation that says there has to be state government infrastructure for the state government to start caring about dredging. That's not the case. That is in a single state government dredging policy. That's not a piece of legislation, it's just their choice. It's their policy that they've written because it's convenient for them. Council has applied for at least 3 times for dredging from the state government, and a lot of these, or several of these, were actually done with the state government in their very political dredging roundtable, which has still not seen any sort of result. They still get rejected, and the cost shifting to local government continues. And it's hard though, because when there are councillors now serving on the council who are serving the New South Wales government's best interests, not the interests of the ratepayers who elected them. I was trying to respect ratepayers when I voted down a motion in council a couple of months ago that said the council needed to immediately buy a dredge. There was no budget, there was no business plan, there was no request from staff, and what that would have ended up with was anywhere up to more than $20 million of council investment to purchase a dredge or a super dredge, whatever the language might be. And what happens then? $20 million is actually just under the entire capital works budget for the Gosford West Ward. So that's every road that gets upgraded. It's every piece of facility that gets upgraded. It's every piece of water and sewage that gets repaired. So that is the equivalent of what we would be buying into a dredge for council to then own and operate and probably sit off the headland just over there. That's right. Am I done? All right. So look, the New South Wales government is currently sitting on $2 billion worth of funding for Sydney stadiums, yet they're saying they're crying poor for dredging on the coast. This is not true, they just don't care. So we need to change the rules that expect it to be a local government problem when every bit of legislation and piece of evidence says it's local government responsibility. Thank you. Take up.
Thank you, Richard. The next speaker I have for the night is Councillor Rebecca Gale Collins.
Thank you for all of you for turning up tonight. As a local, I just want the dredging fixed. I want the Ettalong Channel open. I've spoken about this same topic 3 times in council chambers. This is a debate that has gone on for 10 years over who's responsible, state and local council, and I'm sick of hearing it. Every step of the way, I've sided with our ratepayers. I've not made it political at all. I've heard from the student commuters, I've heard from our working commuters, I've heard from the ferry operators, and I appreciate Fantasy being here tonight and also Central Coast Ferries. I've heard from the sailing clubs. I know that it's costing us potentially the 30,000 tourists that come in. It's costing our local businesses, and as you heard from Bill earlier, that's potentially $2 million a year that we're losing out on. And don't even get me started on the 2006 bushfires, because what if there was a catastrophe that happened tonight? How would we get out of here? Thank you, sir. But listen, at the moment, Rescue Our Waterways is taking place in the entrance. Now, who says that lives in the entrance are more important than lives on the peninsula? Lives in Kilcare, lives in Hardy's Bay. We are all equal, and we need the Rescue Our Waterways funding to be applied for. I put it up in council chambers to submit a compliant application for Rescue Our Waterways to get immediate dredging action now, and I was knocked back. Can I get a show of hands of who would have supported that if you were with me in council chambers? Thank you. I also support that ministers meet and think about the long-term solutions. I support the Waterways study, the $500,000 study, so that we get it right long-term. But what I can see, as a ratepayer, is this going around in circles? On the way here tonight and today, I was thinking about other methods that we could potentially come up with. What about, and could I get a show of hands as to thoughts on this? What about if I was to go back to council and ask them, aside from rescue our waterways, which we should be applying for, another option, which would be to look at potentially having mining come in, sand miners come in. So private, viable exercise as a solution. Can I get a show of hands if you want me to look at that option? Because I'm getting knocked back for rescue our waterways and we're not getting any action here on the peninsula. Who wants some action? Okay, I'll take that back to rescue to Central Coast Council. Thank you all for coming this evening, and I'm advocating for you. I do want the immediate fix as well as intermediate and long-term solutions so that we can have our Ettalong Channel opened. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Our next speaker is President of the Wagstaff to Kilcare Community Association Group. Please welcome Mrs. Peter Kulbach.
Thanks, Bill. We're apolitical, but first of all, I'll acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, and secondly, I'll thank you all for coming. The Wagstaff to Kilcare Community Association covers the Budo Peninsula, so we've got a fair number of suburbs here, the Wagstaff, Pretty Beach, Hardies Bay, Kilcare. We're apolitical, collaborative, inclusive, welcoming. We protect the environment and we work to develop community resources. So we're delighted to see how many of you are turning up here today. We've had long involvement with the ferry company. We worked with the company to get a reverse trip between Wagstaff and Ettalong so people could come over for doctors, dentists, coffee, see friends, do whatever, and have less traffic on the roads. And that began in January 2012. The ferry service is of vital importance. We've got school attendance. I've run the schools. We've got about 6 students and 2 staff at Barrenjoey and 3 at Narrabeen Sports High. So they need to keep on going to school. They're required to go to school, and we want them to. We've also got people for workers both ways, tourism, medical appointments, recreation and family links between all our areas. This has a major business impact with the high-profile tourism to the Budo Peninsula. We've got Bells at Kilcare and Pretty Beach House, plus many rental properties and restaurants and so on. Bells, for example, has about 10 people a day on Friday, Saturday and Sunday coming to their lunch, and they also have other people coming to their accommodation. And that's the tip of the iceberg. We all know how Airbnb and other rental properties are throughout our peninsula, but they're also in yours as well. People come here by ferry, it saves car travel, and that saves and protects us all, I think. There's an equity issue. How come we've got joint funding up at other parts at Tuggerah Lakes? We need it here also. We've written to the Minister and Council seeking speedy action. We're proposing short and long-term solution. Let's cut out the politics. Let's just get this done so we've got immediate dredging. For the longer term, we need a working party or similar to deal with the technical issues and assess the options, what can be done, and they can look at funding also. But I'm pretty impatient. We've got a council meeting on Monday night, and I think that we should be proposing tonight that council pass a resolution on Monday night to agree to jointly fund immediate dredging and follow it up with a compliant application. And I'd say again, we are apolitical in our association. All of you, I think, in this are apolitical. We want action, though. We need the waterways open, so let's work together to get it that way and be collaborative, cooperative, and that's way how we build our societies and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Ladies and gentlemen, I do know that there's the operations manager from Fantasy present in the room. Would you like to address the meeting?
Thanks so much, everyone. I really wasn't expecting to speak tonight, but it's heartwarming to see you all here. Look, we're greatly saddened by the fact that our good passengers that have been with us for so long, we're not able to get you to your destination. It was a long drive here from DY. I had a number of ferries at my disposal, but I wasn't able to bring anyone up. To give you a bit of an explanation as to why we're having so much trouble, there's a bit of shoaling right just south of Lobster Beach, and anything below a 0.8 metre tide now we can't do. On a high tide maybe, but we can't get people back to where they set off. And here we are going to Patonga every day.
Please stop.
What was that, sorry?
Please stop dropping off at Patonga.
Look, our wish is to run, as we have for many years, the Palm Beach to Ettalong ferry service via Wagstaff.
That's your
Okay?
route. Stick with
We
it.
don't want to run to Patonga. Okay? That's our ferry
Good.
service.
Then don't.
We operate the ferries, okay? But we see ourselves as caretaker of the ferry service. Okay? The ferry service is a community asset and one that we all want. I must say we're very highly grateful for Adam Crouch and all the people who are fighting to get this channel dredged and get that ferry service running. I think we're getting closer, but we first raised concerns in 2014. That's when we really started getting concerned. Okay, it's just a crying shame that it has taken this indefinite diversion for the action to take place, and all I can say is that with all your support, we're right with you, and we hope to get the matter resolved. For residents of Wagstaff, sitting here, I've just been thinking, in the meantime, we're looking at buses or whatever we can do to make the detriment less to our passengers, but we'll try and maybe run no commitment here, but run a water taxi between Wagstaff and Ettalong to get you on the bus to Patonga. But it's not a long-term solution, it's damage control, and the long-term solution will come when that dredge rocks up to Brisbane waters. And if anyone wants to speak to me about the service and anything, suggestions that you have that we can, make life easier for you all, please see me afterwards.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now the time for results. We could, and I say we could stand around here all night asking questions of each other. But that's not going to do any good. The dredging needs to be done now. Not tomorrow, fortnight, 3 weeks away. It needs to be done and commenced Monday morning. It needs to happen and it needs to be fixed. The politicians need to take that home with them now. Now, I'm happy to take from this meeting a motion that will reflect our feelings in regards to this matter. But, and I ask you to listen, but as members of this community, you must be aware that for this to work, this motion to work, we need to attend the council meeting at which it is discussed. And we must bulk our numbers by taking a friend. 450 won't cut it, we need 900 people. Are we, as a group, prepared to attend a council meeting to ensure this happens? I thank you for your support. There are a couple of people that would like to share their experience with us. There is a lady sitting here somewhere. Where did I see that lady sitting here? Had an accident with the... There she is, just there. Would you like to come up? This lady, and I haven't even got her name yet. Margaret. Margaret had a bit of an accident with the channel. I'll give you the microphone, Margaret. You're right there.
Could we hear Councillor McLaughlin, please?
Hello everybody. I just want to talk about the experience we had 9 weeks ago. We had a little family outing on our yacht. We planned on the Saturday, on the 3rd of March it was, to go out with the children and just go to Box Head and park our yacht there, have lunch. We went out on the high tide because we've been watching the tides there. We've been sailing out there, going out there for probably 15 years. So we knew that things were tight, but we went out in the morning, we went out with the high tide, we just had a very quick lunch, and we said we can't stay too long. We had a little sail across to Barrenjoey Lighthouse, turned back, came and had lunch, and then we thought we'd better get back because the tide was just turning. So off we go. And we get into the channel, and I'm at the helm. I'm usually the one that brings the yacht that's my job. So I'm at the helm, I'm coming along, I had 3.2 metres, I was watching, we were in the channel. We were trying to stay closer to the rocks because I'd been told to stay closer, but we were well and truly in there. Next minute I had 3.2 metres, then zero. Absolute zero. The boat just went whoop, like this. We got a 33-foot yacht. We were like this. We had our grandchildren. Sorry. I'm not used to this job. So we run aground and we had our grandchildren frantic. We were all frantic. My husband saying, try and go forward more. And I said, we're not going anywhere. In theory, probably we should have reversed out of it, but but it was all happening so quickly and the boat was like this. So I nearly had a heart attack. My son went down. People were trying to help us, and then some people took her. I said, please take my grandchildren off. They're really upset and scared. So people came alongside, and it was rather dangerous because we were getting the swell behind us, and they took the children off to Lobster Beach, and they were stranded there for about an hour and a half, and it was a very hot day that day with our daughter-in-law, and I stayed on the boat with my husband and son. They were leaning out, trying everything to get us off, and we waited for an hour, and they were wonderful. We were rescued, and they dragged us off. We had to be dragged off their bar and taken back out to sea. My husband and my son, there was no way they were going to get back in. So they took me back to Wagstaff, picked up our children at Lobster, took us back to Wagstaff, and then I drove round that night and picked my husband and son up at Patonga Beach. Then the next morning my husband and I came in, and a beautiful big cruiser who tried to help us the day before, we followed him in. And we were very close to the rocks. It was dangerous, but it was the only way that we could get back in on a high tide. So it's absolutely horrendous, and I just wanted to share that with everyone and say, something needs to be done. And I'll be at that meeting on Monday night.
Thank you, Margaret. Ladies and gentlemen, there is one more speaker. Councillor Bruce McLaughlin.
Thank you very much. I'm independent councillor at the entrance ward where the actual dredge is working quite well on a 50-50 funding and has done before. Just a bit of background on my role in council or my landing in council. I'm not political. I'm the only councillor that actually got elected on their own name without any preferences from either party. I'll vote with Labor, I'll vote with Richard, and I'll vote with Rebecca, whatever the policy is that I think is right. And I voted for the dredge. I voted for the dredge because I think the hypocrisy of this whole situation is going to run deeper than the channel ever will. This policy has been around since Labor. Liberals inherited it. They're offering the same deal as Labor did, and all of a sudden now the Labor councillors won't support it. Now, I don't think you can stand there in council and say it's a terrible thing, we shouldn't be done, when in the past that's what Labor did. So I'm not knocking Labor, I'm not knocking Liberal, I just want the thing fixed. I think any husband in the room will say you can be right or you can be happy. It's as simple as that. And I think if you want a result, you take the path of the least resistance. And the path of the least resistance is just take the funding. Get on with it, get it done. Now, let's just be realistic. The Liberal government is not going to change their policy. They've got 14 other councillors. 14 other councillors have accepted the 50-50 funding. They've got money underway at the moment. There's dredges running up and down the coast. They're not going to change their policy for the Central Coast. Let's just get real, okay? It's just a nonsense to stand there and say we're going to put pressure on the government to change. The government is not going to change. It hasn't got the funding to stop the other 14 councils and fund them. They're not going to fund the Central Coast 100%. Let's just get real. Whether I think that's right or wrong, I don't think it's right. I think the state government should fund it. That's what the legislation says, but it's government policy to fund it 50-50 at the moment. And at the moment, that's government policy. I can't change government policy. As an independent councillor, I have no power whatsoever to make the government change. As a councillor, I can vote to accept the 50-50 funding. I can move forward in council. This council can take the Central Coast forward, and it can take it now. There's funding on the table to do so. And the only reason to do so is you've got party politics getting down through your council chamber. I didn't run on any election promises. The only thing I promised was I'd be business-like and I wouldn't put up with party politics. And that's what you people are putting up with. It's as simple as that. Now, if the Liberals were mucking up, I'd call them out too. But at the moment, the Liberal councillors are voting for the dredge to fund it. The Labor Party are taking the Labor position and saying no. Now, you can sit there and complain all you like about it and say it's not right, and the state funding should be the state, and it probably should be. But I can't fix it, but I can get you some funding. So come along to council and just get the job done. It may be a band-aid solution that we get at dredge now, but in any first aid situation, a bit of first aid now might stop a fatality later. And in council, I asked the question in council the other night. I said to them, if there is a fatality you've just heard that lady's situation. That was probably in calm conditions. Imagine a big south swell coming up her back. Now, we all know if you surf, you can be in flat seas 1 minute, and an hour later you can have a 3-metre swell on your back. You imagine a 3-metre swell on that family in a couple of hours where they'll be. She may not be on the podium here tonight. And I said to council, whose responsibility is it if someone drowns in a boating tragedy? And the answer was, that's a complex question. And my answer to that, it's not complex. You people in the room are not going to care whether it's state or it's council's responsibility if some family drowns out there. I know that I can do something about it and get some funding. And if that means that someone doesn't drown out there, I'll cop it on the chin as far as funding goes. Sure, do the legislation, change your government, do whatever you want to do, but that's going to take 1 or 2 years, and council could actually stand up and say, no, we're going to go to court. We've got legal advice. We've got legal advice that we can go to court and the state government can do. That would take 2 years. 2 years Land Environment Court, and your ferry's stuck for 2 years. So all I can say is come to council and ask them to fund your dredging. One thing I can guarantee Tim and council is I can't guarantee anything, mate.
Thank you, Bruce. Piers, you'd like to say a few words, Piers?
My name is Per Dunland, and I am here. I don't represent any particular organisation. I am a user and have been a user of the channel for 25 years, day and night, and I'm very concerned about what's happening. I'm also more concerned now, listening to all the various excuses. Nothing is going to happen here. You might turn out to the next council meeting, but when we've got councillors that really are dead set, they don't want to do anything about this, I think that the latest speaker hit the nail on the head. There is 50-50 funding available from the state government, and that is what's available now, and we should grab it. And we need to grab it to extend a study so that we can also plan for future remedial work, and not just a one-off funding. We want funding on an annual basis so that we can keep that channel open all the time. And for anybody to talk about buying a dredge is the most ridiculous things. There is a dredge available which has been working in all the other 13 council areas. It's called Port Frederick. The last job it did was in Ballina. So that's available. It needs to be hired. It will do this work here easily. So it's a question of helping to organise this. Now I came here tonight, I thought we could set up a bit of a user group. Then I'm informed by somebody in the Hardies Bay Residents Association that there is already a maritime user group here. Well, having been on the water here for 25 years, I've never heard of it. And what have they done? I haven't seen anything or had any pamphlets or anything like that. What have they done about this? Nobody has done anything about this channel. And it's time we start to do something. I was going to suggest tonight we start some kind of committee, like a steering committee, if you like, to keep all the councillors and our politicians honest. They've got to be on it, there's no doubt about that. But we need somebody that can sort of give them a kick in the arse, really, to, and get the things moving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Councillor Gilly Pillen. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, given I'm from the entrance ward, but this dredging issue is one that I've been very passionate about right from the start. I've had my name on every motion that we've put forward to do the same for Ettalong that we have up at the entrance, to apply for the Rescuing Our Waterways. Actually, at the very start, my thoughts were, let's just bite the bullet and buy the bloody thing, because at the moment nothing's being done. Now, whether that was too extreme at the start, but Council had actually applied for a grant and they were going to ask for 10 million to put towards a dredge. So at most, we were going to be outside, say, 10 million from what they were prepared to do. This wasn't supported, but since then we've continued to rescind those motions and put up motions to at least apply for the 50-50 funding that Adam Crouch has been urging Council to do now. It's there all the time. As you heard, it's been there since 2011. 2013 to 14, I think, is the only time that Gosford Council actually got off their butts and applied for this funding. That's why we're in this dire situation down here at Ettalong, because it's been left year after year. Whilst entrance gets dredged, it hasn't been done down here at Ettalong. So it's so good to see everybody out here in support. We just want a solution and actually get it done. It's affecting our economy here on the Central Coast. It's affecting tourism. It's affecting people getting to work, children getting to school. So I just wanted to let you know that, yes, as Liberal councillors, we have been supporting for that 50-50 funding and hope to see others urge you to come along and support us in that action. Thank you.
There you have it. Do you need to have any questions answered? We know who the responsibilities lie at. We don't know. We'll never know. That will be an ongoing question that will be probably settled in a court in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time. So I would take the questions normally, but I think people have been here for a fair while. We need to get a resolution from this group and then move forward. No, madam, I'm sorry.
I just thought, since everyone's here, if we can put, is there anything that we can do, like if there's with the applications and everything, can we put something forward? And when is the council meeting? Monday.
We understand we have to do that, so how do we do that?
Hang on a second. Please. I've got a microphone somewhere and it's coming. Kim? Some of the people on the other side of the room can't hear you, I'm sorry. Including me.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, since everyone's here and to help support everything, is like with this 50-50 funding, he mentioned it like an application or something. Is that something that...
There's a compliant application would have to be made by council to the state government.
So there's nothing we can actually...
We can't fill out the form.
Okay. And
We must as a group ask that they fill out the form and comply with the legislation as it reads today.
So how do we ask...
Not worrying about whether who's paying. I don't care if Rebecca Gale Collins has to pay for it, or Richard Mertens, or Liesl, or Bruce McLaughlin, or my chairman even. I don't care. I want the thing fixed now, today, right away. And that's not even soon enough, Rebecca, sorry.
So to answer your question, how we can go about that, last council meeting I put up a motion for to submit a compliant application for Rescue Our Waterways. So that was already done, and we lost the motion, it was hijacked. So I guess the answer to that is that we would put in an urgency of motion and try and get an urgent motion up on Monday to encompass what's been discussed here tonight, including Rescue Our Waterways.
And when's the meeting?
6:30.
Does it help? It does help. The more people attend, it does actually help the support. Is that the idea? Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
It does help, and my source of information for that is Councillor Best. Good old mate from up at Budgie. Rang me this afternoon and said, I'm sorry I can't make it to the meeting tonight. He was coming. I can't make it to the meeting tonight. I've got an urgent family crisis. But be aware that if you take a resolution from the floor, then you follow it up with making sure that you get everybody that is at the meeting to attend the council meeting which is going to be discussed. When? Monday night, that's Monday the 14th, at 6:30 at Gosford. Now, as you were coming in, we were asking you to fill out the form, leaving your name and email address. We will make sure that you get that advice. That's from Ettalong Diggers. And the only reason we want your email address and name is so that we can relay any messages to you from this meeting. No sales material from us or anybody else will be sent to you. We need to make that clear. So if you're prepared to go to the meeting at 6:30 on Monday the 14th, please put your email address down and we'll make sure that we've got some way of getting you there. Gosford Chambers in Gosford. That's in the main drag of Gosford. The tall building. You can't beat it. There's a lady there wanting to ask a question, Kim. Well, it'll be out on everything. Social media, the web, Facebook, the whole box and dice. We'll have it out everywhere for you. You will make sure.
Thank you very much. My question is simply to ensure, or I want to understand the process of making sure that we get on the agenda for the council meeting before the due date of 7th of June to ensure that this matter is up for their decision making, because they need a certain amount of time, as I understand it, and if you bypass that date, then the issue can be completely scrapped from the council agenda.
We have been assured by Councillor Rebecca Gale Collins that the item will be discussed on Monday night. Can we be there? Yes, we can. Thank you.
Before everybody disappears, everyone's busy, could we, this meeting, pass a motion that the meeting requests both state government and Central Coast Council to work together to fund immediate dredging work this month so that the ferry service to Ettalong and Wagstaff can resume, the council to complete a compliant application, and that in the longer term, a working party of stakeholders assess the appropriate approach for the future, looking at maintenance dredging, technical issues, environmental implications, community impact, including work tourism, educational issues, and funding. But we need something like that. Make a proposal that we put to council for Monday night as an urgent motion that it work with the state government to jointly fund urgent dredging of the channel. If we have a seconder, is all those in favour? Is anybody against? Abstentions carried unanimously.
Thank you, Peter. Marcel.
Thanks, Bill. I have another motion. I believe we need to speak truth to power. I think there's no point in stuffing about with council at the moment with all this toing and froing. I do encourage you to go to the meeting next Monday, and it's really important that you do that and have the councillors see how strong this passion is about this issue. Now, but we do need to talk to Gladys Berejiklian. There are a lot of people here who could vote to support this following motion, and I want you to have a look at it, listen to it, and if you want to do something more about it or add to it, I'm very happy to accept that. And so what I've written down is the members of this meeting call for the Honourable Gladys Berejiklian, Premier of New South Wales, to accept, to immediately provide emergency funding to enable urgent dredging of Brisbane water so that the Ettalong Channel is navigable. We've got to get that done first. Then the people who join these committees to do a long-term plan on what will happen in the future will be the case. But at the moment, we've got to get money to fix the channel right now and then sort out the problems in all good time. Is there a seconder to that motion? We need a name for that seconder. We have one. Thank you.
All in favour? Aye. Petition, what are we going to petition? Who are we going to petition? And the best way that we can petition the people is to be at the meeting on Monday night. What we can do is we'll get a petition established and get it out to everybody.